So you're thinking about making the move to Atlanta, Georgia, but you need to know everything, the good and the bad of living in Atlanta. And that's exactly what this video is all about. There's a lot of positives, but there are some negatives that we want you to be well aware of. So we're going to get after it right now. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about eating, sleeping, working, playing, the good and the bad of living in Atlanta, Georgia, then subscribe below and tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know about the current market conditions here in Atlanta. I'm Denny Faircloth, and the team and I get calls each and every day from people just like you looking for help with their move to Atlanta, and we absolutely love it. So whether you're moving in 9 days or 90 days, give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, and we'd be happy to help you make a smooth move to Atlanta. So as I mentioned before, this video is all about the good and the bad, the positives, the negatives, the pros and the cons of living in Atlanta. But first, I've walked in your shoes. If you're relocating from LA or Chicago or New York or Dallas, well, I've literally done that, having moved away from Georgia and back multiple times throughout my life. I've become somewhat of a relocation expert, and really this video is all about answering those questions that you want to know before you move here, and really answering some of the questions that you might not even be thinking about. So with that, let's dive into all of the cons or the downside first. Well, I'll start with what I believe is the worst, and that's the traffic. Literally every place I've lived, again, Atlanta, New York, Chicago, LA, and Dallas, all miserable traffic, and Atlanta's right there up there with all of them. That's really the trade-off. When you're talking about a city that's growing rapidly, well, then there's always going to be infrastructure problems in keeping up with that growth, right? So the alternative is to move someplace that's not growing and that is easier to keep up with. So unfortunately, traffic is terrible in Atlanta, and that leads me to the second one, which is it's really car dependent, meaning the public transportation is not that great. There are lots of developments where you can live, work, and play within that development. But really, if you want to enjoy all of Atlanta, well, then you're probably going to be spending some time in your car. You know, there is a MARTA, a train system, and a bus system. There are a few places, like if you're leaving one of the suburbs, like say if you're in Sandy Springs and you want to go to the airport, you can get on the train and take it to the airport. Or if you want to come into the city to go to a sporting event, you can. But it's really not like a New York or a Chicago where you could live without a car and you could get around just fine and you'd never miss a beat. So the public transportation is not great. It is very car dependent. That also leads me to the next one, which is what is it called? The suburban sprawl. Like everything is very spread out. So we're not landlocked. That just means that as places get more populated or dense, well, it just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And so there's a little ring around the city called 285, an interstate. And then so if you live inside that, we call it ITP. If inside the perimeter, if you live outside that, we call that OTP, or outside the perimeter. So it's very much poor public transportation, lots of traffic, lots of suburban sprawl, and you have to have a car. So those things kind of all go together. But those are a couple of the cons. The next is, bugs. Unfortunately, mosquitoes and things like that, those annoying type bugs and insects are pretty prevalent here in Georgia. And so they tend to love me for some reason. Like my wife can be standing in a swarm of mosquitoes and not get bit. They would all find me. So hopefully you're more like my wife and they leave you alone. But for me, it's a really big downside. And really the last con, I'm going to put on both lists, the cons, and then maybe I'll start there for the pros, and that is the weather. So what's the downside of the weather? Well, it's called Hotlanta for a reason. The summers are blazing hot. from about June, like May's comfortable, June starts to get hot, July and August are ridiculous. September, you start to get some relief, and then we're into the fall. So one of the downsides is the hot summers. And in the weather, I'll lump in, in the spring, the place explodes with pollen. There's pollen everywhere. My allergies go nuts. And so if you have allergies, it's just something to consider, that it's gonna be hot, and there's gonna be at least a season where pollen and allergies is an issue. But that's it for our cons. Now let's get on to all of the great things about Atlanta. Well, since I finished with weather, I'll start with the weather, and that is that there's genuinely 4 different seasons. Like we talked about the hot summers, you're gonna get a very mild, very pleasant, very enjoyable fall where all of the trees and the leaves and the colors change, and you're gonna have this explosion of like green, yellow, red, orange, like all of these colors, which is really great. And then into the winter, and the winter is very mild. It occasionally snows like once in a blue moon, not very often. So you're not gonna have a lot of white Christmases around here, but it's a mild winter. It does get cold, but then that's very short-lived. And then you're on to a beautiful spring where again you have an explosion of growth and flowers and trees and lots of color, and spring is really spring and fall are my favorite times of year. Winter has its benefits, and there's something about summer that I enjoy even though it's really hot. So the weather's actually a plus for me. Next, let's talk about the economy. There are lots of opportunities here in Atlanta, but population growth, job growth, economic activity, it really is booming. There's a big tech industry, lots of logistics. You have big companies like Coca-Cola and Home Depot and other large international companies that are headquartered here. Even in lots of tech growth, like Google has a big operation here. There's really, like, as it relates to like starting a business, owning a business, or being an entrepreneur, or looking for advancement in your career, there's a ton of opportunity in the Atlanta area. Outside of economic opportunity, the next big one for me would probably be sports. There's all the major sports here. So you have the Atlanta Falcons, you have the Atlanta Braves, so Falcons football, Braves baseball, the Atlanta Hawks for basketball, and then my favorite of all is the Atlanta United. What's up? Repping the ATLUTD, Atlanta United. We were blessed that in their second season ever, they won the entire league, which was crazy. And so Atlanta, really, who'd have thunk it would have been such a huge soccer city. But it's one of the best values and experiences in the industry. They play in the same stadium with the Falcons. Arthur Blank, owner of Home Depot, owns the Falcons and Atlanta United. But you're talking about 75, 78,000 people, state-of-the-art, brand new stadiums, just a couple of years old. So the sports, the enthusiasm for sports, the Braves, their stadium is only a couple of years old as well. And so the enthusiasm for sports in Atlanta is crazy, and I love it. And speaking of attractions or entertainment, that would be my next one. Outside of just sports, really there's a lot going on in Atlanta. There's a lot to do, whether you're talking about the zoo or you're talking about the aquarium, which is downtown, or you're talking about tons of theaters and nightlife and all kinds of, obviously bars, restaurants, clubs, like that kind of stuff. But really Six Flags, Whitewater, so theme parks, water parks, there's all kinds of attractions and entertainment. I mean, it's a major metro area, millions and millions of people. So when it comes to attractions and entertainment, as you can imagine, there's everything from comedy, movies. Talk about an industry. I wasn't even gonna put this on the list or just thinking about it, but Atlanta has become the #1 producer of state in terms of movie production in the entire world. They've surpassed LA and everywhere else. And so there is a booming theater and movie economy in Atlanta as well. That takes me to one of our next pros, which is Hartsfield International Jacksonville Hartsfield International Airport, which is the busiest airport in the entire world. So that being said, there's lots of industry. Delta is a huge employer, but it's really easy to get out of. There's probably a direct flight to everywhere you can possibly imagine wanting to go. Is right here out of Atlanta. If you live somewhere else, you probably connect here to Atlanta to go internationally. So when it comes to like global business travel or even just for leisure, well then you're not going to find an airport with more access to more destinations easily and more. And let's frankly, it makes it more affordable too, because a lot of times you're going direct, so it's cheaper and it saves you time and money. So the airport is a really big plus. And next on the list, right in line with that, airport being the melting pot culturally from the world. Everyone has access. Everyone comes to Atlanta. A lot of them stay. So diversity has to be on my list of pros for Atlanta. You will find people from every walk of life, all shapes, all sizes, all ages, all races, all socioeconomic statuses, all religions. Like if it exists in the world, it's here in Atlanta, and that's one of the things that makes Atlanta great. And along with that diversity would be next on the list, people. I mean, the people are amazing. Southern hospitality is a real thing. It does rub off on other people. Having lived all over the country, again, New York, LA, Chicago, Dallas, Fort Worth, and back here, you get that Southern feel. Like people looked at me funny in New York when I said hey to strangers, or if I waved or smiled, or sat too close. But here, it really is, the people are some of the best people that you will meet. Next on the list is become really a worldwide phenomenon and huge attraction in and around Atlanta, and it's called the Beltline. If you're looking for real estate along the Beltline, it is exploding in value. And so they took a bunch of useless land that was like either old railroads that were no longer in use or industrial lands throughout the city, and they've invested hundreds. The city and private, so private, public, the city and private companies have gotten together and invested hundreds of millions, probably billions of dollars in the development of the Beltline. I don't even know how long it is, and it's not even finished. It started being planned maybe 15 years ago, I don't remember when they broke ground on the first phase of it, but maybe 5 to 10 years ago. But it is this huge running, walking, biking trail, not through like up in some of the suburbs, like in the Roswell, Alpharetta area, there's the Greenway, that's all through the woods. This is like through the city in very urban areas, and it's really like restaurants and shops and breweries and coffee shops and retail, and all these things have blown up and popped up along the Beltline. One of them being a very successful development, which was the old Sears and Roebuck's was converted. It's called Ponce City Market because it's off of Ponce de Leon Avenue, but it's off of Ponce de Leon Avenue, but it's also on the Beltline, which goes right through it. And so it connects all these great neighborhoods, and the Beltline really is like one of my favorite things to do when we take the family and to go for a walk along that Beltline. Visit, when I was a young man, single and much younger, I lived in the inner city. We now live in the suburbs, but some of my favorite places are in Atlanta. I host a real estate networking event every single month, and it is on the Beltline, and I go in and I visit my favorite coffee shops, get my favorite coffees, have my favorite pancakes. I do all that stuff, and then hit some of my favorite breweries. So really the Beltline's an amazing asset to the city, and it's something that you should get familiar with. Now that takes me to not just in the city, but the proximity. Atlanta itself, it's not necessarily flat, but it's not mountainous. But it's pretty standard outdoors, like run, bike, walk, that kind of stuff. But if you really want to get to a lake, it's right in the suburbs of Atlanta, right outside of Atlanta proper. There's some great larger, like huge lakes where you can do lake living. But even not far beyond that, like we're within a couple of hours of everything that you could want, from mountains to lakes to even beaches. And so my family and I, we're leaving for the beach literally this Sunday. As I record this in a few days, we shoot down to the Panhandle, the 38 area a couple of times a year with the family, and it's really a short drive, but you can hit Hilton Head, the South Carolina beaches and shore. You can hit Savannah, which is part, South Georgia. You can hit Savannah and then that east coast of Florida, or you can hit that west coast of Florida, all within probably, I'd say 4 to 6 hours. So it really has great proximity to other outdoor experiences. The mountains are within an hour. The lake is within 45 minutes. I mean, it really is easy to get to a lot of places from Atlanta. And the last pro that I will share is the cost of living, especially if you're coming from, again, some of those major metro areas we discussed, like New York and LA and Chicago. You're going to find that housing is affordable, taxes are low, the necessities of life in the grocery store in your everyday living, from food to gas, like all of that stuff is really, really affordable. So the cost of living in Atlanta and in Georgia is extremely low, and something that I think you're going to find very appealing if you should make that move to Georgia. So with that being said, if you have lived in Atlanta, or you do live in Atlanta, and there's something that I didn't include on the list, I'm not perfect, we would love for you to drop those in the comments below and share for the people that are watching this video, because it would be valuable to them. I would appreciate it as well. We appreciate all the people that watch, all the people that comment. If you haven't already, subscribe and tap the bell for notifications so you can be aware of all the current market conditions here in Atlanta, Georgia. And we appreciate also all of our subscribers. And then obviously our past and current clients, we greatly appreciate. And if you need help from us in any way, don't hesitate to give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, and we'd be happy to help you make a smooth move to Atlanta. And we will see you on the next episode.